Lesson 37, Chemical Compounds and Parallelograms. So what we're going to do in this lesson is apply the math that we know into chemistry. So let's read the exercise. It says, the chemical form for water is H2O. If we have 3,600 grams of water, what is the weight of the oxygen? And then they tell us this information here that is very important. And it says that O, that's for oxygen, is 16 and H for hydrogen is 1. So the first thing that we have to see is the formula. The formula tells us that there are 2 H and 1 O. So I have to use the information that they give us here to find the weight of one molecule. And so in this case, it's going to be 1 times 2 because there are 2. And since there's 1 oxygen times 16, 16. So the total weight for H2O is, if we add these two, 18. Notice that it's kind of similar to the idea of the ratio boxes that we've done in the past, but we have to include the extra weight when we have 2 or more of an element. Now we can compare, and it says that we have 3,600 grams of water. So we're going to put 3,600 here because that is water. And the question is, what is the weight of the oxygen? So we'll put our X there. And notice how we create a proportion. So all we have to do is solve that. We cross multiply, and when we simplify, 18 divided by 18 is 1. And 3,600 divided by 18 is 200. And then we multiply 200 times 16, which is 3,200. And that would be the weight of the oxygen in this case. When you have an exercise like this, pay close attention to the formula, because the formula will tell you how many atoms of each of the elements does the molecule have. In this example, it says the chemical formula for ammonia is NH3. If we have 510 grams of ammonia, how much does the nitrogen weigh? So again, notice how they give us the formula. So we have the nitrogen, and we have only 1 atom of nitrogen. Then we have the hydrogen, and the hydrogen we have 3 atoms. Then they give us this information, which remember we have to use. And so for the nitrogen, it's going to be 1 times 14. And for the hydrogen, it's going to be 3 times 1. Now, if we add those two numbers, then we get the weight for the ammonia. Then we keep reading, and it says that we have a total of 510. So that goes here on our total for the molecule. And the question is about the weight for nitrogen. So my X is going to be up here. So in this case, if I form my proportion, it's going to be 14 over 17 equals X over 510. In this case, we don't need the 3 because the 3 is for hydrogen. We cross multiply, and then we simplify. 17 divided by 17 is 1, and 510 divided by 17 is 30. Then we multiply 30 times 14, and the answer is 420 grams of nitrogen. And that's it. Very simple lesson. Let's do one more. In this one, it says the formula for ammonium chloride is NH4Cl. The capitals tell us how many elements there are. N is one element, H is another element, and Cl is the other element. So it says, how many grams of chlorine, so that's the Cl, chlorine, are there in 1,060 grams of ammonium chloride? So we're going to do exactly the same. We're going to write each one of the elements with the amount of atoms that the formula says it has. And then we're going to multiply by the weight. So nitrogen is only 1, so 1 times 14. Hydrogen is 4 times 1. And the chlorine is 1 times 35. Again, if I add these, I get the total weight for one molecule of ammonium chloride, and in this case, it's going to be 53. So now we put our total here, the 1060 grams for the molecule, and the question is here on chlorine because that's what they are asking, so we put the X there, and our proportion is going to be 35 over 53 equals X over 1060. We cross multiply, and now we simplify. If I divide by 53, the answer is 1. And if I divide this one by 53, the answer is 20. And then I multiply 35 times 20, which is 700. So the answer is 700 grams of chlorine. Now the second part of the lesson is about parallelograms. And what we have to remember is that the parallelograms are quadrilaterals that have special properties. The first property is that they have two pairs of parallel sides, and each pair has equal sides. So this one is the same as this one, and this one is the same as this one. So they are parallel, but they're also congruent. Then the other very important property is that opposite angles are congruent as well. So this one is the same as this one. They have the same measurement. And this angle here, it has the same measurement as this other one. The third property is that the sum of any two adjacent angles is 180. So what that means is that if I add this angle plus this angle, that's going to be 180. But also, these two are going to be 180. But also, these two are going to be 180. So any two adjacent, remember adjacent means that they're next to each other, they are supplementary or they equal 180. Finally, the diagonals bisect each other. What that means is that if I draw the diagonals like this, they bisect each other. So those are the same, and this one is the same as this one. Okay, so bisect means that they cut each other in half. So let's look at an example. It says ABCD is a parallelogram, and the measurement of the angle BAD, so remember how we read that, BAD is this angle, is 65. Find the measurement of ADC, so find this angle, and DCB, this angle. Okay, so we're going to start with the angles first, and then we're going to work with X and Y. So what do we know about the angles? Well, we just learned that two adjacent angles are supplementary. So the angle A and the angle D are supplementary. They equal 180. They tell us that the angle A, or BAD, is 65. So I can find D by subtracting. And angle D would be 115. Now, the angle C is even easier because we learned that opposite angles, A and C are opposite, they are the same. So if A is 65, then C is also 65. And that's it. That's all we have to do. Now, the exercise also says find X and Y. So let's see what we can do about X and Y. What did we learn? Well, we learned that the diagonals, which are these green lines, the diagonals bisect each other. They cut each other in two equal parts. So what we're saying is that y plus 7 is the same as 4. This piece is the same as this piece. But also that x plus 2 is the same as 7. So we can put here x plus 2 equals 7. And then we just solve that easy equation by passing the 7 to subtract. So in this case, y equals -3. And then in this case, we have to pass the 2 to subtract, and x equals 5. And that's it. So notice how we use the information we learned about properties of parallelograms to solve this exercise. Now in this exercise, it says that ABCD is a parallelogram. And they asked that we find x and y. Now again, very, very easy. What did we learn? Well, we learned that these two angles are the same. So I can say that 10x plus 50 equals y plus 10. And we also learned that any two adjacent angles are supplementary. So I can say that 10x plus 50 plus 5x plus 10 equals 180. Now in this case, we have to start by solving this equation. Why? Because it's the only equation that has one variable. In this other one, we have x and y. So here we have to add like terms. So 15x equals 180, and then pass the 50 to subtract and the 10 to subtract. So 180 minus 60 is 120. And 120 divided by 15 is 8. Now with the value of x, we can come here and substitute the value of x, which is 8, in this part of the equation, so that now we only have one variable. And so this would be 80 plus 50 is 130 equals y plus 10, and the 10 goes to subtract. And the answer for y would be 120. And that's it. So do your practice. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.